Okay, this is notes 8-2. Okay, this is pretty easy stuff. The key here is remembering that absolutely everything is a fraction, so even whole numbers are fractions. So if I had 4 to make it a fraction, I would put 4 over 1. Looking at number 1, it's multiplication. We learned last week that when we multiply and the bases are the same, we keep that same base. These are the same base, which is a base 5. Now, whenever we're multiplying, we add exponents. So we have negative 4 plus 3. Negative 4 plus 3 is a negative 1. We cannot have negative exponents. So again, we just talked about that everything is a fraction. So if I put that 5 to the negative 1 power over 1, I just created a fraction. How I get rid of a negative exponent is I move it to the opposite of where it's at. So if it's on top, which is the numerator, I move it down to the denominator and it becomes a positive. If it was already on the bottom as a negative exponent, I would move it to the top into the numerator and it would become a positive. So it's all about moving it to the opposite of where it's at and changing it to a positive. So in this particular case, I would move that 5 to the negative 1 power. I move it down, so it's now on the bottom, and it's 5 to the positive 1 power. And that's it for that one. Okay, on number 2, it's multiplying because it's a power to a power. So I distribute that 2 times negative 3, so that would be 2 to the negative 6 power. Again, we cannot have a negative exponent, so I must make it into a fraction and move it down. So that's 1 over 2 to the positive 6 power. If I put 2 to the 6 power in my calculator, that comes out to 64, and obviously 1 is still on top. Okay, moving on to number 3. On number 3, we see a bunch of negatives, and we have the same base on all of them. So I'm going to move this 8 to the negative 3 power. He has to move down. It's 8 to the positive 3 power. 8 to the negative 5 power. He has to move down, so it's 8 to the positive 5. 8 to the negative 9, move it up, so it's 8 to the positive 9. Now I see on the bottom, I've got multiplication, so 8 to the 9th on top. So I keep that base, the base is the same, add exponents, 3 plus 5 is 8. Now we have a fraction. With fractions, we subtract exponents. So I have 8 to the 9th, so it's like 8 9s on top. 9 8s on top. And I have 8 8s on bottom. If I subtract it, that'd be a difference of 1. And because it's to the 9th power on top, that means my leftover is on top. So it's 8 to the 1 power over nothing left under here, or 1, which equals 8. Okay, now on number 4, I have a number touching parentheses, but there's multiple things inside. I have a 5 and a 4. Everything also has its own exponent. So that 5 has an exponent of 1 and a 4. I got to distribute the negative 3 times that 1. So it'll be 5 to the negative 3 power over negative 3 times that 1. 4 to the negative 3 power. Now, see negative exponents. So obviously, got to move the top one, the 5 to the negative 3, down to the bottom. So it's 5 to the positive 3 now on the bottom. 4 to the negative 3, move it up. 4 to the positive 3. Put 4 to the 3rd power in my calculator and hit enter, and it gives me 64. Put 5 to the 3rd power in my calculator, and it gives me 125. Can't reduce them as far as it goes. Okay, moving on. All right, number 5. Okay, now you're at first sight, you're going to want to think that that 5 has a negative 4 as an exponent. However, the exponents only go with what they are directly touching. And that negative 4 goes with the x. It's touching the x. The 5 has its own exponent. When there's nothing there, we know it's a 1. A positive 1 on each of these guys. Okay, now, so when I go to move them, the 5 is already on top. It stays on top because it's a positive exponent of 1. If you want to put your 1 there, you put it there. Okay, that x to the 4th, or negative 4, goes down, so it becomes a positive on the bottom. The y to the 3rd stays on top. On the bottom, I have an 8. I like to put my numbers in the front. It stays, and an x to the 5th. Okay, times. Now I have 3 over 6. That 5 over 8, I couldn't reduce it. 3 over 6, I can. 3 over 6, 3 goes into both of them. 3 goes into 3 one time, goes into 6 2 times. So it's 1 over 2. Now I'll start moving the ones I need to move. On top, I have x to the negative 3, so I got to move it down to the bottom as a positive. Y to the 5th, keep it on top. And then on the bottom, I got a y to the negative 4th. I am going to move it to the top. Okay, now I multiply straight across. I multiply the whole numbers, add the exponents. So I've got 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, y to the, they're all y's, so add them up, and that gives me 12. 8 times 2 in the denominator on the bottom is 16. X to the, add them all up, 12. That's as far as it goes, can't reduce that anymore. Okay, number 6. On number 6, same thing. Remember, it's a positive exponent with the 2, so I don't move that negative 2 down. It has a positive 1. You're going to want to move it because it says negative 2, but the exponent is a positive. The only time I move them is if the exponent is a negative. Okay, so when I go to do this guy, that negative 2 stays on top. First off, actually, let me back up. We have a negative 2 over 6. I can reduce that. 2 goes into both of these. So this would be 2 goes into here negative 1 time. 2 goes into 6 3 times. So it's negative 1/3. Now let's start moving the exponents. X to the negative 6, got to move it down. Becomes a positive. Y to the positive 4th stays on top. Okay, on the bottom I have x to the negative 3, got to move it up. It makes it a positive 3 up top. Okay, 4 and 12, looking at the second one. That'll reduce. 4 goes into 4 one time, goes into 12 3 times. So I've got 1/3. X to the second on top, it's positive, so it stays up. Y to the negative 3, got to move it down. Now I'm looking on the bottom, y to the negative 5, got to move it to the top. Now, same as we did on the last one, multiply the whole numbers, add exponents straight across. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. X to the, I've got 3 plus 2 is 5. Y to the, I've got 4 plus 5 is 9. Over. Now on the bottom, 3 times 3 is 9. X to the 6th, y to the 3rd. Now we have to do one last step, just like we did a little bit ago. If it's a fraction, you've got to subtract exponents. So we got to find out where the bigger number is and where the difference is. So we have negative 1/9. Oopsie, sorry. Okay, I have x to the 5th on top, x to the 6th on bottom. So I have 5 x's on top, 6 on bottom. That's a difference of 1 left over on the bottom. I have 9 y's on top, 3 on bottom. That's a difference of 6 left over on top. That's as far as it goes. And finally, number 7. On number 7, we chose to go ahead and distribute the second one, that negative 2, through, and then mark it off, and then start flipping our stuff over. So we chose to do this right here. It's multiplication, distribute it. So it's x to the 2 times negative 2 is a negative 4. Y to the negative 1 times negative 2 is a positive 2. Remember that z has an exponent of 1. Z to the 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Over that negative 2 times 3, z to the negative 6 power. So now we've already used this guy. We don't need it anymore. We could even make that a multiplication right there. Okay, so I'm looking at the first one, this guy here, this set. Let's start moving what we need to move. that x to the negative 2 goes down. Y to the positive 3 power stays up. Z to the negative 1 goes down. Looking at the bottom, x to the negative 3 goes up. Y to the positive 2 stays down. Times these guys over here that we just did. So I'm looking at these guys now. I have x to the negative 4 goes down as becomes a positive. Y to the second stays up. Z to the negative second goes down. And on the bottom, I have z to the negative 6. Got to move it up. Now, we multiply straight across, which means we add exponents. And we keep them in alpha order. So x is first on top. We have x to the third power, because there's only one of those. Y to the 3 plus 2 is 5. Z to the 6th. Over. On the bottom, x to the 6th power, y to the 2nd power, and z to the 3rd power. Okay, now we have to clean it up. We got to divide, which is subtraction. We got to subtract exponents and put the leftovers where they belong. So here we go. I have 3 x's on top, 6 on bottom. That's a difference of 3 left over on the bottom. I got 5 y's on top, 2 on bottom. It's a difference of 3 on top. 6 z's on top, 3 on bottom. That's a difference of 3 on top. And that's my final answer. The problems we did, A, 8-2, we did numbers 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 15, 17, and 18. This concludes the notes for N 8-2.